Kia ora and welcome to Sobriety Chat. My name is Lotta Dann, otherwise known as Mrs. D, and I am the community manager and content creator here at Living Sober. Today, I am joined by Kath Elliott, all the way from Australia. Now, Kath is a wife, a mother, a sister. She's an alcohol coach, an entrepreneur. We'll hear a bit more about that. A cancer thriver, and she is sober. Welcome, Kath.
Thank you, Lotta. Mrs. D, I'm so happy and pleased to be here.
I know, we finally connect. It's so nice to have someone over the ditch.
Absolutely, it is.
So tell me, I always start with the same question. How long has it been since you had a drink?
So nearly 3.5 years. I had my last drink on the 30th of June 2019, and I remember it very clearly.
What was it?
So I'm a bit of an AFL football fan, and I was watching a game of football on TV with my family. It was sort of an early evening, late afternoon match, and I was watching it drinking a Pinot, I think a Pinot Noir, and I had a bottle, and then decided I might open another one, and the game was very close, and I remember feeling a bit woozy, and I got quite emotional during the game because it was so close. And I remember going to bed that night thinking how relieved I was that I had already made the commitment to have an extended break away from drinking. And that was the last drink that I had.
So you had thought to yourself, I'm going to have a break. You didn't know it was going to be long term at that point. Is that correct?
So I think what had happened in the past for me was I'd given myself a start and an end date of alcohol breaks because I was what I would identify as a classic sort of binge drinker. So I wasn't a daily drinker. I was much more that binge drinker on weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no off switch. And so I'd sort of toed and fro with this idea that, well, I'm definitely not a dependent alcoholic, if you want to use labels, but I have issues with alcohol, so I should be able to moderate my drinking. And it was after, I guess, an event on a family holiday where my 3 children saw me incredibly drunk. We'd been out with some friends, and I'd had a lot of, probably 4 or 5 cocktails very quickly, and was completely, off my head. And my husband really had to, put me into the car and take me home, and they could barely get me out of the car. I fell back and hit my head, and my kids were really, really worried and shocked. And I guess that event really made me do some final soul searching, where I thought, the formula that I've been trying here has not been working.
So you were trying to moderate and control and it wasn't working.
I was worried about my drinking. Yeah, it sort of crept up over time. And, although I've sometimes found a way to moderate, I always ended up in a blackout or a binge or some sort of, awkward, embarrassing situation. And so it was after that family holiday in April 2019 that I did say to myself that I really think I need to have an extended break from drinking and not put an end date on it, and just be open to what that lifestyle might look like. And I guess it wasn't until a couple of months later that I sort of gave myself that, dry July, 1st of July, let's just start there. And I didn't have another binge after that one in April. And yeah, that was what I did. I just stepped into the alcohol-free lifestyle on the 1st of July and prepared to see what would unfold.
And what unfolded?
A lot, really. I mean, you never know what's going to hit you.
No, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I had no idea either, but you're right. You just never know what's coming around the corner. So, yeah.
You really don't. You really don't. And it's only in hindsight that you can kind of look back and go, wow, whether you believe that there's something kind of happening for you or not in the, in the world or the universe. But I guess for me, the decision to take alcohol out of my life, 6 weeks later, I was getting ready for work. I was in the shower, and for some reason, I was feeling a bit panicky. And it was almost like there was a voice in my head that sort of said, Kath, slow down, stop rushing, go and look at your body in the mirror. You've got this new floor-to-wall mirror that we just moved house. And I kind of went out and looked at my body in the mirror, and it was then that my eyes darted to my right breast. I could see some puckered skin. I could see kind of a weird little mound. And that's the first time that I lay, I lay my eyes on the huge lump that was in my breast. And I'll never forget that moment, because it took my breath away. I almost struggled to get air in. I knew right then and there that something, incredibly significant had happened, and that the trajectory of my life was about to change. And
Oh my gosh.
tried to scream down to my husband, and I couldn't get the noise or the sound out.
So you had no doubt in your mind that this was something.
I think so, because I didn't have, and I hadn't been doing really regular self-checking. It was winter. It had been winter in Melbourne, so I guess you're just not as exposed. But what I now know to be true about breast cancer is, particularly in younger breasts, and any breasts under 50 are generally younger. I have quite large breasts, D, double D. Lumps can hide in dense breast tissue, even large ones. And sometimes it's just, they can pop out all of a sudden. And I had been to the GP for a breast check about 8 months prior to it, and nothing had been discovered then. So, just another, I guess, point to make is that, a breast lump can show up quite quickly, depending on the type of, breast cancer that you have as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm just having a quick feel now. Because we know that we're supposed to do checks, but we don't always, do we? So in the intro, I called you a cancer thriver. I don't want to minimize your journey with cancer, but obviously really interested in talking about the alcohol relationship and what part you think that plays, and your knowledge now around that. But if you can just sort of tell us, what transpired with the cancer, and are you free of it now?
Yes. So I will, start off by saying I am now cancer-free and have been for a couple of years. And I don't want to minimize the experience of going through cancer. I would not wish a cancer diagnosis on anyone, but I have been able to use my experience through cancer to do, a lot of positive things, which I am very grateful for. We all get thrown curveballs in life, and I'm lucky. I've always had a positive attitude to life and to challenges. Some of us have that, others of us don't have it so much. And for me, I saw it as an opportunity to really take a 360 look at my life, the things that I was doing well, and maybe the things that I wasn't doing so well. And I wanted to really, I guess, look more holistically at my lifestyle. And one of the things that, cropped up pretty quickly was my binge drinking, my kind of dysfunctional relationship with alcohol, really, that started, as a teenager growing up in Melbourne in the 80s. That just popped up, and I thought to myself, I have been in many areas quite healthy, healthy diet, always exercise, done quite, a lot of personal development. But the two things that stood out to me was my drinking, and the other one was I always, even during stressful and challenging times, tried to deal with things on my own, very self-sufficient. I'll get stuff done on my own. And there was always this voice in my head that was like, you can do this. You don't have to tell anyone. You can do everything on your own. And even my whole relationship with exercise was, what I can see now, was a bit, not quite right. It was exercising more as punishment for drinking, exercise as punishment for eating, all of this sort of thing. So those were the two main things that came to me. So I started to do quite a bit of research into the links between alcohol and breast cancer, because I asked people and no one seemed to really know much. And even when I was going through my diagnosis and treatment, my doctors didn't ask me about my relationship with alcohol. Obviously there
It
was
is crazy.
it really is a recommendation not to drink a lot, but there was not much really, I guess. There wasn't a lot of information provided to me.
But Kath, alcohol's normal. It's
Yeah,
fine. Everyone
yeah.
does it. It's cheap. It's available everywhere. How could alcohol be a problem, right?
Oh, exactly, and, you've got cancer. I mean, a drink or two is not gonna harm you. You need to relax and relieve the stress, all of this sort of messaging that we get, and the normalization of excessive alcohol use in Australian culture is
And New Zealand
beyond ridiculous.
and England and America. I mean, in the
And
most westernized
yeah,
countries.
and Ireland, and,
Yep.
yeah, it's crazy. And so this is what, we're up against, really. And so for me, I just thought, I'm gonna start doing my own research, and I was quite shocked at what I discovered. There's been, hundreds of studies undertaken over the past 30, 40 years
The
that
science is irrefutable.
it is irrefutable and it is there. And, interestingly, breast cancer charities aren't out there really doing a lot about it, because, of course, they fundraise through using alcohol sponsors, through people going to their functions and drinking, so they splash out more money. So there's sort of this kind of insidious
Mm.
stuff going on under the surface as
I
well.
cut you off though, but what did you find? Like, what is the link between alcohol and breast cancer?
So obviously all studies, do come up with, I guess, different sort of statistics. But I guess in summary, there is every drink you have increases your overall breast cancer risk. So 7 drinks a week, 1 drink a day, can increase your overall breast cancer risk by between 15 and 23%, which is pretty significant.
Yeah. Alcohol causes cancer or raises your risk of cancer, which an epidemiologist told me is the same thing.
Oh,
Um, But she
absolutely.
says it's a very I mean, because I did interviews on this for my 3rd book that I wrote, where I
Mm.
researched the links between alcohol and cancer, and, the epidemiologist I interviewed said it's a very slippery, she had this way of putting it, it's a very slippery idea to kind of explain to people, because it's not everyone who drinks alcohol or even a lot is gonna get cancer. So there's that element of, even though, yes, we know it raises your risk exponentially every other drink you have, there are those who don't. So it's a hard thing for people to grasp onto as a definite.
Oh, it absolutely is, because of course there are plenty of people who excessively drink and don't get cancer.
Yeah.
And so I'm really about generating awareness so people can make more educated decisions in their
Yeah.
own life about how much they drink. I mean, in Australia, the figures that are being floated around at a minimum level are, 1 in 10 cases of breast cancer, directly linked to alcohol consumption. And so if we've got 20,000 cases of breast cancer diagnosed per year, that's round about 1,000 cases, which is a lot.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. The other problem, of course, is the liquor industry, which is really good at muddying the science. And I've read one paper which did a analysis of how the liquor industry is using exactly the same tactics that the tobacco industry used
Mm.
to distract and muddy the thinking around it. So you might say to a lobbyist, alcohol causes cancer, and they'll come back with, well, so does sunlight. So your brain goes, oh yeah, and it moves away from the fact of alcohol. Do you know what I mean? Like there's all these clever, horrific, really, tactics that they're using to hide the fact that their product is inherently toxic and dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. And look, you and I both know when you strip it back, alcohol is a toxin. It's a poison, and there's no way of dressing that up. And every time you're drinking, there is always the possibility of some form of of DNA damage. That's absolutely what I know to be true. And I think it's so interesting because yes, alcohol companies always come out with this this diatribe about the fact that everything causes cancer now. No, not everything does, and we now know that alcohol can cause up to 7 or 8 different types of cancer and more.
Yeah, and you're doing amazing work in this space now. And I'll link in the notes when I put this up on the site to your Instagram. And you've got this, the reason I put entrepreneur in the intro is because you've got this product now that you are selling, which is a natural product. It's also raising awareness. I mean, it's just amazing what you're doing, Kath. And to use your lived experience and something that, that moment you describe in the mirror and that feeling of this is a massive, I mean, that you're using that lived experience now to help others is just so great. So, thank you for
Oh,
that.
thank you. I really appreciate that.
So what I'm interested in is also how is your life now that you don't drink and that you've been through the treatment and you're just living sort of as a sober mum, wife, sister, and all the rest of it? How is that for you?
Yeah, look, it's complex. I say to people, living a sober life for me has been like incredible in many ways, but you're also choosing a lifestyle that not the majority of people are not living. So there are some difficulties in that. And, I've had some, friends who found my choices quite difficult and hard because it changes the dynamic of your relationship. But it's also opened the door to so many really new friendships as well. And even, with my husband, we used to drink a lot together. We've had to really reset and start a whole new relationship. He decided to stop drinking 12 months after I did. And so he now no longer drinks alcohol either. And so it's been an interesting period even for us adjusting to what an alcohol-free lifestyle is. And we're still trying to find our way in that. But I guess from my perspective, the things that I've noticed personally that have been really mind-blowing is just I feel much more an ease and comfort in my own skin. And so that just makes my life feel a lot more balanced. I feel like I'm much better at putting boundaries around, what is acceptable in my life and what isn't. I don't need to be socializing out and doing a whole lot of stuff all the time. I like being at home. I like my own company. I love my the new career that I now have as an alcohol coach. I studied to be a certified This Naked Mind alcohol coach. And now, I now really help other binge drinkers who are in a similar position to me. And I love that work. I love my advocacy work, which I do in the breast cancer space. And so really, I feel like my life is so much more engaged and on purpose. And in this sober community, there is just so many wonderful, wonderful people who are doing really incredible things. And it's not a competitive community. It's a very
Mm,
endearing, loving collective. We're all
yes.
here for the greater good. And I love that. I really do. It's felt like a big warm hug in what sometimes can feel like a bit of a lonely existence in a really alcohol fueled sort of world.
Oh, I love that. You articulate all of that so well. I mean, and you're right, it's not, and I'm really happy that you sort of led with the fact that it's not peaches and roses and perfect all the time, because it's not. But, ultimately you do get to this place where you're more connected with what you're doing, you're feeling more grounded in yourself. I mean, that stuff is so powerful. If you just want to bottle it, right, and give it to the people who are currently struggling. And I read something you wrote in an article that said that that what you found is how magical the simple moments in life are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, that came through both choosing alcohol free and, my cancer diagnosis. Those two experiences happening at the same time really, I was questioning my mortality, why I was here, what my purpose was, what life was really all about living, here right now. And, it isn't just a guarantee. All of a sudden I was like, it's actually a privilege to be alive. And how do I want to do this? And the role of alcohol, I really looked at it and I thought, it's just been keeping me treading water. I've sort of been stuck in this pattern of treading water, really beating myself up, not in a negative headspace about my drinking.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself after the cancer diagnosis, and when I was still going through treatment and I didn't really know what the outcome was going to be, I thought to myself, one thing I know for sure is that choosing not to drink alcohol is going to ensure that I have some control over my increased cancer risk moving forward in my life, which feels really empowering to stay
Mhm.
alcohol free. And the other thing was that being alcohol free just keeps us present, keeps us really present in life. And I thought, you know what? After having that cancer scare, I do want to be present in all moments of my life as much as I can. And so yes, the magic is actually in all those ordinary moments. It's in feeling, that beautiful sunshine on your face when you're walking the dog. It's when you hear your favorite 80s song come up on the radio in the car and you're just like, yeah, I love this song. All of this stuff, that's what started to build, momentum and dopamine hits, because of course when we're drinking we really find it difficult to experience natural dopamine, highs. And what I've found since I've stopped drinking is, wow, you can access natural dopamine highs from so many areas in your life that you didn't know because you were getting it from alcohol, and so you couldn't really experience it. So that's the other thing that I love as well.
Mm. I mean, the thing about alcohol fueled dopamine highs is that it's like a sledgehammer, poof,
Mm,
instant. You have a drink,
mm,
there it is. The natural ones, the sun on your face, the being on a water slide with your son, the
mm,
hearing your favorite 80s song. Those are lovely moments. They're a little more subtle. So one of the
mm,
things about that transition of becoming a non-drinker is adjusting to that more subtle nature, because you're used to the whammo.
mm.
And I think the further you get away from your last drink, the more you can notice those subtle little moments, and the more that you can feel them. But at first, it sometimes still feels a bit flat because you're used to the instant hit from the Pinot Noir or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it takes your body a while to rebalance chemically to actually be able to experience them. And, often you don't even know, you haven't been allowing yourself to feel things anyway because you've been
Mm,
numbing it. Or, it's almost like alcohol creates a bit of a force field around physical emotions and also, emotions in how we actually feel. And it really takes time. There's a real adjustment period because it's quite uncomfortable. We're not taught how to experience feeling, and sitting in what can be really uncomfortable. So, even now, if I have, a disagreement with my husband, in the past, I would have been drinking, drinking. And now you've actually just got to sit with it and experience it and deal with it and process it.
mm, that's Exactly right. So this sober space that you described so brilliantly as a warm hug, it has really exploded. Since I quit 11 years ago and started
Yeah.
blogging, there wasn't a lot, and now it's everywhere, which I love. Social media, you can fill up your feed with the people you relate to who are talking about not drinking.
Mm.
However, we still do have, don't we, this normalized kind of trend of people, but especially women and especially middle aged women who are doing this heavy binge drinking. What,
Mm.
I mean, where do you see this going? Are we going to be able to chip into that kind of normalization in the society we live in?
Yeah. It's really interesting that middle-aged women at the moment are really, and that this is, we're talking that sort of, 40 to 65 sort of age group. This is where there is a huge increase in drinking compared with other demographics. So there's something, there's it's a trend that's quite frightening. What I've noticed though in my group of friends is that people are starting to look at their relationship with alcohol more seriously. And binge drinking in this age group is also increasing. So there was a recent study that came out in Australia to say that 20% of women in that age group are noticing that they are binge drinking, and it feels like a problem for them.
It'll be
So,
higher than that too because it's self reported and people underreport what they're drinking.
well, always. I mean, I
I
always
did.
underreported. I mean, I
I
never reported the truth. I reported what I thought the GP would want to hear.
Yeah. Oh, you said, "Oh, I have one wine," but your one wine's actually 3 standard drinks, which is what I was
Well,
doing.
exactly. Or I would say, yes, well, I had 5 to 10 drinks in a week, but I had all of those on a Saturday night. That they don't ask you those questions.
No, that's right. Yeah, well, we just have to keep chipping away doing what we're doing and hope that the trend is going to slowly shift. And I don't know what's happening in Australia, but in New Zealand, there are politicians now, and even our government is
Mm.
putting forward a bill that is starting to shift some of our regulations around alcohol, which might shift some of that normalization of the marketing and advertising and the targeting. Women are so targeted with ads. Is it crazy over there at the moment leading up to Christmas?
Oh, yeah, mummy wine culture, and even I went into a gift shop, to buy a card for a friend who was turning 50, and oh my gosh, just the cards and how alcohol-centric they were,
Mm,
and the memes. I was shocked. I was like, this is like pushing it in people's face. It really, you're so much more open to all of that now when you're on the other side and have a different perspective. But, I was like, no wonder people don't stand a chance sometimes, because they are getting these messages everywhere they go, social media, through catch ups with friends, marketing, walking down the street, billboards, family events. It is everywhere. And yes, we are seeing changes because there is a lot more coming out into the media now, and that a lot of people are more sober curious. It's not always about stopping drinking, but it's also about looking at the role of alcohol
mm.
and what how it I guess how it plays out in a healthy lifestyle. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this suggestion came up that really, hopefully, in 20 or 30 years' time, alcohol will be more that occasional drink that people will have 3, 4, 6 times a year, not something that they're doing every week.
Great. Hey, we don't have long, but I do just want to quickly ask you because I know that you are also a mother of teenagers, and
Mm.
like my teenagers, your teenagers are starting to have the odd drink because that's what all their
Mm.
friends are doing. It is, we have to accept it's a normal thing, right? Because we did it too. And I don't know, how are you coping, Kath?
Oh, this is Lotta, this is a tough one because, when you obviously, we have values now around alcohol, and it's difficult, but I also completely understand that this is sort of, age appropriate stuff that you go through when you're a teenager and that you're experimenting. And I don't want to, I guess with my boys, I'm very much, I think you just role model, you continue to role model, you continue to give them the information about the experiences that you've had with alcohol. And I talk about, how I found some things really difficult when I was a teenager and made some quite bad decisions around drinking, or found myself in situations when I, had blacked out, where I was embarrassed, or I, wet the bed and things like this, just to say, you know what, it's actually, it can cause,
It has a dark side.
yeah, there is a dark side.
Yeah.
But, I think if you come down on kids and say, don't do this, don't do that, they're going to do the
Yeah.
opposite. So
Yeah.
it's really about, I think just role modeling our lifestyle, and showing them there is a different way, that at dinner time, when we're having dinner, we don't have bottles of wine there. We talk and we do it differently.
Yeah, and we relax in different ways and we can still have fun. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I always also keep thinking, my kids, they have to figure out their own relationship with this drug, and it is their journey. So yeah, you're right. It's amazing what we're doing. Modeling in the house is really powerful, and then just try to, I don't know, cross our fingers and hope that the,
Totally. And
the mistakes aren't dire.
no, and you're right, it is their journey, and this is our journey, and that's what I say to people. I'm not here to tell people what to do about their own relationship with alcohol. If you're happy with it and you like a few drinks, good on you. It's really about, there are a lot of people who struggle with their relationship with alcohol, and if you can join the sober community and get support, find like-minded people, and find a relationship with alcohol that improves your life and makes you feel better, well, that's what we're all really trying to do.
Yes, how amazing. You are lovely. So happy to connect with you. Thank you for coming in, doing a sobriety chat with us, and just keep up the great work. I'll like I say, I'll share all the links to all your stuff so people can find you, and thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Lotta. And I do have to say, your book is one of the favorites I always recommend books for my clients when they do a program with me. And I have to say, they love Mrs. D.
Oh, thanks so much. All right. I'll see you later.